The diner on 11th Avenue lived on burnt coffee and broken promises. Neon buzzed over laminated menus, and the grill hissed like it was tired of people's secrets. Ethan Caldwell, 29, hoodie zipped up over a watch that could blind a gull, sat in the corner booth the way some men sit in a confessional. Eyes down, shoulders squared against memory. Across from him, Carter Vale leaned back with the kind of careless charm that always costs someone else. Slick hair, silk tie, a smile made for billboards. Carter's voice filled the air, bragging about a massive rollout next week, City Hall connections, and a podium waiting for Ethan's big moment. Mara Delaney, the waitress, brought their refills. She'd worked night shifts long enough to read rings and wrists the way doctors read charts. Ethan's hands bore calluses, money earned in bursts of hard work. Carter's hands were soft, manicured, money that grew like ivy, clinging to someone else's brick wall. Another slice? Mara asked. Pecan, Carter said. We're celebrating. When Carter headed to the restroom, Mara leaned in. Her voice was low, but her eyes were steady. You don't know me, but I know that smile. Be careful with him. Ethan's mouth curved in a faint smile. Carter? He's been my friend since college. We split rent and ramen. Then he knows where your locks are and what keys open them. She wanted to tell him more. About the week before, when Carter sat in that same booth with a city council aide, trading names and promises, but the bell above the door jingled, and Carter returned swinging his jacket. Ethan just said, thanks for the concern, and let it go. The next morning, Manhattan gleamed. Ethan woke in his Tribeca apartment to a phone buzzing with congratulations. Around 11, the doorman called. A Rolls-Royce Cullinan's parked in the loading zone. Says they're here for you. Outside, the SUV's grill filled the street. A driver in gloves opened the passenger door. Inside sat a woman in a navy dress, pearls with a history. Mr. Caldwell, she said. Eleanor Vale. Carter's mother, one of them. May we speak? In the lobby lounge, she placed a thick envelope on the table. It didn't sag like cash. It landed with the weight of consequence. Carter asked me not to come, she said, which is why I'm here. Ethan opened the envelope. Printouts, emails, invoices, shell companies, and his own startup's name in yellow highlight. He said he was making introductions, Ethan muttered. He smooths with sandpaper, Eleanor said. My son is charming, brilliant, and dangerous. Fire him before he lights you. Outside, the rolls slid away like a predator vanishing. Ethan's phone lit with a text from Carter. Big day tomorrow. Dinner at 7? Got a surprise. Ethan typed, deleted, and finally replied, sure. See you at 7 Pines. The envelope under his arm felt heavier with each step to the elevator. 7 Pines was the kind of restaurant where the bread cost more than most people's dinners. Ethan arrived early, the envelope from Eleanor Vale tucked in his messenger bag. He hadn't opened it again since yesterday. He didn't need to. The images in his head, Carter's signature beside corporate shells, were enough to sour the taste of any celebration. He took a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. The place smelled faintly of cedarwood and seared steak. Dim light glowed over polished mahogany, and the sound of quiet jazz floated through the air like smoke. Ethan ordered water and checked his phone. No new messages from Carter. At 7:14, Carter strode in like a man arriving at his own gala. Tailored charcoal suit, pocket square sharp enough to cut glass, the same easy grin. But tonight, there was something in his eyes, brighter, hungrier. Sorry I'm late, Carter said, sliding into the seat. Traffic was murder. But he leaned back, snapping his fingers toward the entrance. The maitre d' guided over a woman in her early 40s, sharp cheekbones, black dress, hair swept into a perfect chignon. Her heels clicked like a countdown. Ethan, meet Victoria Kane, Carter said. She's the one who's going to take your company global. Victoria smiled without warmth. I've heard a lot about you, she said, voice smooth and measured. Carter tells me you're adaptable. Ethan forced a polite nod. And Carter tells me you make magic happen. Oh, I do, she said, settling into the seat beside Carter. But I don't do it for free. The waiter came, took orders, and left. Carter began outlining a strategic expansion involving overseas investors, political contacts, and an influx of gray money. Ethan knew the term. Money that wasn't black market illegal, but lived in that shadowy in-between where plausible deniability thrived. Victoria studied Ethan as Carter talked, her gaze sharp enough to read the doubts he was trying to bury. "You're quiet," she said finally. "Do you trust him?" It was a trap, and they both knew it. "We've known each other a long time," Ethan replied carefully. "Long enough," Carter said, grinning, "that he doesn't have to think twice." But Ethan was thinking twice. About Mara's warning. About Eleanor's envelope. About the way Carter's fingers tapped the table in a rhythm too quick for his own calm words. Dinner dragged into dessert. Victoria excused herself first, leaving Carter and Ethan alone. Carter leaned forward, lowering his voice. "This is the start, man. You just have to sign off on a few things, keep the board happy, and in 6 months, you'll be sitting on a yacht with your name on the hull." Ethan stirred his coffee, watching the dark swirl. "And if I don't sign?" Carter didn't blink. "Then someone else will. And you'll be left wondering why you didn't grab what was right in front of you." The check came. Carter covered it with a black Amex. As they stood to leave, Carter clapped him on the shoulder. "Think about it. But don't think too long. Opportunities like this, they vanish." Outside, the night was cool, the city's glow reflecting off wet pavement. Carter disappeared into a waiting black SUV. Ethan stood there, bag over his shoulder, the envelope inside feeling like both a weapon and a shield. He didn't know it yet, but tomorrow morning, someone would use it before he could decide how. Ethan barely slept. The city outside his loft pulsed with sirens and headlights, but it was the silence inside that kept him awake. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Carter's grin at the dinner table, like a man who'd already won a bet no one else knew they were making. By dawn, the sky over the Hudson was a sheet of dull steel. Ethan brewed coffee strong enough to strip paint and sat at his kitchen island, staring at Eleanor's envelope. He told himself he'd give Carter one more day before making any move. But his gut kept whispering, "He's not waiting for you." At 8:12 a.m., his phone rang. Not a call, an alarm. Dozens of notifications flooded the lock screen. Emails from his PR team, texts from board members, missed calls from unknown numbers. He opened one email and felt the blood drain from his face. Subject: urgent. We have a problem. Body: documents have surfaced alleging financial impropriety tied to your company. Multiple outlets have already picked up the story. Call me immediately. Ethan dropped the mug into the sink and ran to his desk. He opened the news. There it was, his company's name splashed across headlines. Tech Wunderkind's startup linked to suspicious shell companies. The article showed snippets of the same files Eleanor had given him. Same highlights. Same damning context. But the framing was worse. It implied he was the architect, not a bystander. Scrolling to the bottom, his stomach clenched at the quote from an anonymous source close to the matter. Ethan Caldwell has been moving in these circles for years. If he claims ignorance, he's lying. It didn't take a genius to guess who had whispered that. Carter. Ethan paced, fingers gripping his hair. If Carter had leaked the documents, he'd done it for one reason: to control the narrative. Now Ethan was on the defensive, scrambling while Carter looked like the concerned friend who'd been duped. The intercom buzzed. The doorman's voice crackled. "Mr. Caldwell? There's a woman here asking for you. Says it's urgent." His mind flashed to Mara, and he slammed the button. "Send her up." When the elevator opened, Mara stepped out in her diner uniform, clutching a folded newspaper. "I saw this," she said, shoving it into his hands. "You didn't give those papers to the press, did you?" "Of course not. Then someone wants you buried." She sat at the counter while he explained Eleanor's visit, the dinner, the strange dance with Victoria King. Mara listened without interrupting, her eyes sharp. When he finished, she leaned back. "He's not just cutting you out, Ethan. He's framing you so when he takes your company, no one questions it. You'll be too busy trying to clear your name." Ethan's phone buzzed again, a text from Carter. "You okay, man? Saw the news. Let's meet tonight, same place." Ethan stared at the message. He could almost hear Carter's voice, smooth and concerned, hiding the knife behind his back. Mara's hand closed over his. "If you go, don't go alone." Ethan looked at her, then at the envelope. His jaw tightened. "No," he said. "If I go, I'm not walking in blind." What neither of them knew was that someone else had just stepped into the game. Someone who had more to lose than either Ethan or Carter. By mid-afternoon, Ethan's office felt like a pressure cooker. The blinds were drawn, the air heavy with stale coffee and the faint hum of his computer. He'd spent hours fielding calls from panicked investors, lawyers, and his own board, each one demanding answers he didn't have the power, or the proof, to give. Then came the knock. Not at the door to the office suite, at his private office door. The one no one touched without calling first. "Come in," Ethan called, bracing himself. The door opened to reveal a man in his early 50s, tall, silver hair swept back, wearing a navy suit that had the quiet arrogance of Savile Row. His eyes were the kind that cataloged a room in seconds and found its weaknesses. "Mr. Caldwell," he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "My name is Samuel Rourke. I represent certain interests in your company." Ethan gestured for him to sit, but Rourke remained standing. "I won't take much of your time. You're in the middle of a war you didn't start. Unfortunately, you're also losing it." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "And you're here because?" "Because Carter Vale isn't the only one who knows how to play this game." Rourke tossed a folder onto Ethan's desk. Inside were photographs, grainy but clear enough. Carter and Victoria Kane, seated at a private table in a different restaurant, leaning close, papers spread out between them. A man Ethan didn't recognize sat with them, face half hidden, but his ring, a thick gold band with an engraved crest, was unmistakable. "That," Rourke said, tapping the photo, "is Leonard DeVries. Real estate magnate, professional rainmaker, and one of the most dangerous fixers in New York. He doesn't attend meetings unless there's something in it for him. Usually something big, dirty, and very permanent." Ethan flipped through more photos. Carter shaking DeVries's hand, Carter passing him an envelope, Carter grinning like a wolf who'd found an open gate. "What does he want with my company?" Ethan asked. Rourke's gaze didn't waver. "Your patents, your algorithms, your political leverage, most of which you probably don't even realize you have. DeVries will strip it, launder it through enough shell corporations to make it untouchable, and leave you with nothing but the lawsuits." Ethan leaned back, mind racing. "Why are you showing me this?" Rourke's smile was thin. "Because Carter doesn't understand who he's dealing with. DeVries doesn't share. And when he's done with you, your name will be radioactive. I can help you turn this around, but it comes with a price." Ethan didn't like the way he said price. "What kind of help?" "I can give you a way to make Carter untouchable to DeVries, not by protecting him, but by making him worthless." Rourke straightened his cuffs. "But once we start, there's no going back. And if you hesitate, you'll wake up one morning to find your empire and your freedom gone." Before Ethan could answer, Rourke placed a burner phone on the desk. "When you're ready, call the number labeled Harper. She'll know what to do." Then he walked out, leaving Ethan staring at the photos. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Carter. "Still on for tonight?" Ethan looked from the text to the burner phone, to Eleanor's envelope. For the first time since this started, he realized he might have to burn Carter before Carter burned him. Ethan waited until after sunset before picking up the burner phone. The city was awash of gold and neon beyond his office window, headlights smearing into streaks on wet asphalt. His thumb hovered over the number labeled Harper. When he finally pressed call, the line rang once before a voice answered. "You took your time," a woman said, her tone sharp but unhurried. "Meet me at Pier 47 in 30 minutes. We're something you can run in." The line went dead. Pier 47 was mostly abandoned at night. Old shipping containers stacked like forgotten toys, the smell of salt and diesel in the air. Ethan parked his SUV under a broken street lamp and scanned the shadows. She emerged from between two containers, mid-30s, black leather jacket, jeans, hair pulled back. Her stride was fast, confident. "Caldwell," she said, stopping a few feet away. "You don't know me, but you're about to trust me more than you've trusted anyone in your life." "Not really my style," Ethan replied. "That's why you're losing," Harper shot back. "Rourke told you the truth. DeVries will gut your company, and Carter's the scalpel he's using. I can make Carter toxic to them, but I need you to play along." "And what do you get out of this?" Her mouth twisted in something between a smile and a grimace. "Let's just say Carter's burned more than one bridge. I was on the other side of one of them." She reached into her jacket and handed him a flash drive. Inside is a series of fake correspondences, emails, memos, contracts, that make it look like Carter's been playing both DeVries and Victoria Kane against each other. If this gets into the right hands, they'll turn on him fast. Ethan turned the drive over in his hand. "And you're sure they'll believe it?" They don't have to believe it completely, Harper said. They just have to believe it enough to question him. People like DeVries operate on trust the way sharks operate on blood. If they smell even a drop of betrayal, they'll tear into him. Ethan hesitated. What happens to Carter after that? Her eyes were cold. He disappears. Maybe he runs. Maybe he's buried somewhere no one finds. Not my problem, and it shouldn't be yours. The weight of the decision pressed on him. This wasn't just business sabotage. It was handing Carter over to wolves. You have until tomorrow morning, Harper said. If you're in, meet me here at 6 a.m. If not, well, I hope you've got a good lawyer. She walked off, disappearing into the maze of containers. Ethan stood there for a long moment, the flash drive like a live grenade in his pocket. Back in his SUV, his phone buzzed, a message from Mara. Saw Carter leaving Seven Pines just now. He wasn't alone. Attached was a blurry photo of Carter, standing beside Leonard DeVries himself. Both men laughing. Both looking like they already owned the night. Ethan tightened his grip on the wheel. He didn't know if Harper was his savior or just another vulture. But he did know one thing. Tomorrow morning, he'd be on that pier. The morning air at Pier 47 cut like glass. Ethan arrived 10 minutes early, clutching a paper cup of coffee like it was a lifeline. The pier was quiet except for the creak of ropes against old pylons and the faint slap of water on rusted hulls. Harper emerged from the fog with the same brisk stride as last night, a messenger bag slung over her shoulder. Good, she said. You came. Ethan handed her the flash drive. I'm in. What's first? We seed the story. Harper pulled out a laptop, its surface scratched and dented. I have 3 journalists on my payroll, don't ask how. One's hungry, one's desperate, and one's just bored enough to take the bait. They'll leak pieces of this to their own sources, and by tonight, DeVries will be wondering if Carter's been running a side game. And if he doesn't believe it? Ethan asked. Then we make him believe it. Harper's fingers flew over the keyboard, her expression unreadable. But there's something you should know. Rourke didn't send me just to save your company. He sent me because you're leverage. DeVries wants your patents, but Rourke wants to keep them out of his hands entirely. So I'm the pawn in 2 different games, Ethan muttered. Harper smirked. Welcome to New York. They worked in silence for the next hour, crafting fake threads of conversations between Carter and overseas contacts, contracts with phantom investors, and enough conflicting promises to make Carter look like he was selling the same asset 3 times over. Harper was ruthless, every word calculated, every date chosen to fit perfectly into the real-world timeline. At 8:15, she hit send. It's out there now, she said, closing the laptop. By tonight, the wolves will be circling him. Ethan exhaled, a knot in his chest loosening. That's it. We just wait? Not quite. Harper zipped her bag. We also keep you out of the blast radius. If Carter realizes this came from you, you're finished before DeVries even makes his move. They were heading back toward the parking lot when Ethan noticed the black sedan. It was parked across the street, windows tinted too dark for the weather, engine idling. You expecting anyone? He asked. Harper's eyes narrowed. No. Get in your car, now? They split, Harper heading left, Ethan right. The sedan's engine roared, pulling away from the curb to follow Ethan. His pulse spiked as he fumbled for his keys and jumped in the SUV. The sedan closed in fast. He floored it, tires squealing on the wet pavement. His phone buzzed with a text from Harper. Don't lead them to your place. Get somewhere crowded. Ethan swerved onto West Street, weaving through morning traffic, heart hammering. In the rearview mirror, the sedan stayed close, patient, like it had all day. Finally, he spotted the entrance to the Battery Park garage and swung in hard. The sedan hesitated at the turn, just enough for Ethan to lose them in the rows of concrete pillars. When he finally parked, hands shaking, he sat there in the dim light of the garage, breath ragged. Whoever was in that car hadn't been there to talk. A new message from Harper buzzed in. That was DeVries' crew. They know something's moving. We just made this a lot more dangerous. By evening, Ethan's nerves were shot. He'd spent the day dodging calls from the board, answering vague questions with vaguer answers, and waiting for the other shoe to drop. Harper hadn't checked in since the chase, which worried him almost as much as the sedan itself. At 6:42 p.m., Carter's name lit his phone. Dinner? My treat. Just us. No Victoria this time. It was phrased like an olive branch, but Ethan could smell the bait a mile away. Still, refusing would look suspicious, and Carter knew it. The restaurant Carter chose was in Soho, a sleek place with floor-to-ceiling windows and dim, amber lighting. Ethan arrived to find Carter already at a corner table, sipping a martini. "Glad you came," Carter said, standing to shake his hand. His grip lingered a beat too long. "Been a hell of a day for you, huh? Headlines, speculation, ugly stuff." "Yeah," Ethan said evenly, taking his seat. "Ugly." Carter smiled like a cat testing the air. "Thing is, I know you didn't leak anything. But DeVries, he's getting jumpy. People are whispering that I'm double-dealing." Ethan forced a neutral expression. "That's ridiculous." "Of course it is," Carter said, leaning in. "But in this business, perception is everything. Which is why I need you to do me a favor. Small, simple, no risk to you. Just sign a statement saying the documents were sent to you anonymously, that you deleted them without reading, and that you've got no concerns about me or my partners." Ethan's chest tightened. This wasn't just a loyalty test. This was Carter trying to put him on record as a shield. "And if I don't?" Ethan asked. Carter's eyes chilled. "Then I can't guarantee DeVries will see you as worth keeping around." The waiter appeared with 2 plates of seared tuna, breaking the tension. Carter smiled again, all charm and warmth, like the threat had never happened. "Eat. We'll toast to cleaning up this mess." Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at it under the table. It was a message from Harper. "Don't sign anything. They're recording you." His pulse spiked. He looked up at Carter, who was watching him with quiet intensity. Somewhere, maybe in Carter's jacket pocket, maybe under the table, a device was capturing every word. Ethan set his fork down. "I'll think about it," he said carefully. "Don't think too long," Carter replied, his smile returning. "Time's not our friend right now." When the bill came, Carter insisted on paying, sliding his black Amex into the check folder. "Let's talk tomorrow," he said as they stood. "You'll make the right choice." Outside, the air was cold and damp, the streetlights casting halos on the wet pavement. Carter's SUV pulled up, and he climbed in without another word. Ethan started walking, only for Harper to step out of an alley a block away. "He tried to corner you, didn't he?" she asked. "Worse," Ethan said. "He tried to make me his alibi." Harper's jaw tightened. "Then we move tonight, before he can lock you in place." Harper's apartment was a small, cluttered fortress on the Lower East Side. Maps pinned to the walls, laptops humming on the kitchen table, half-empty coffee cups like checkpoints in a war room. Ethan paced as Harper typed furiously. "We don't have time to chip away at Carter anymore," she said without looking up. "He's accelerating. If he hands you to DeVries, you won't even get a chance to defend yourself." "What are you suggesting?" Ethan asked. She glanced at him, eyes sharp. "We cut out the middleman. We go to DeVries first." Ethan stopped pacing. "And do what? Tell him Carter's playing both sides? He'll think we're lying." Harper smirked. "Not if we give him something he can't ignore." From her bag, she pulled out a thick manila folder and slid it across the table. Inside were photographs, bank transfers, and confidential memos. Real ones, not fabrications. Linking Carter to a competitor DeVries had been at war with for years. "Where the hell did you get these?" Ethan asked. "Let's just say I know people who don't like Carter more than they don't like me." She closed the folder. "You're going to hand this to DeVries in person, and you're going to make him think Carter's been setting him up for a fall." Ethan stared at the folder, the weight of it almost physical. "And if he doesn't believe me?" Harper shrugged. "Then you won't have to worry about Carter anymore. Or anything else, for that matter." 2 hours later, Ethan found himself in the back of a black town car heading uptown. Harper had arranged it. No driver name, no company logo. Just a voice from the front seat saying, "Sit back. Don't talk." The car stopped in front of a brownstone that looked ordinary except for the 2 men in dark coats standing at the door. One stepped forward, frisked Ethan without a word, and then nodded him inside. The interior was nothing like the exterior. Polished marble floors, oil paintings of grim-faced men, the faint scent of cigars. In the center of the room sat Leonard DeVries, wearing a navy 3-piece suit, his gold crest ring catching the light. "Mr. Caldwell," DeVries said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "I understand you've come with information." Ethan sat, trying to keep his voice steady. "It's about Carter Vale. You've heard the rumors. This proves them." He slid the folder across the table. DeVries opened it, flipping through the documents with the slow precision of a man who never rushed for anyone. When he reached the final page, his eyes narrowed. "Where did you get this?" Ethan hesitated, then said, "From someone who knows Carter better than you think." For a long moment, DeVries just studied him. Then, with unsettling calm, he closed the folder. "If this is true, Carter has made a very expensive mistake." Ethan swallowed. "And if it's not?" DeVries' smile was thin and cold. "Then you've made one." A shadow moved in the corner of the room. Ethan turned just enough to see Carter standing there, arms folded, watching him. "Well," Carter said, stepping forward, "this is awkward." Ethan's stomach dropped. Carter's grin was all teeth, but his eyes were pure calculation. "I told you we needed to trust each other, Ethan," Carter said, stepping closer. "And here you are, in my partner's home, waving around bedtime stories." DeVries didn't look at Carter. His gaze stayed on Ethan, cold and steady. "Partner," he said slowly. "Funny. Carter, you never called yourself that before." Carter hesitated, a flicker, but enough for DeVries to notice. "I'm just saying," Carter recovered. "This guy's confused. Somebody's feeding him garbage." DeVries leaned back in his chair, tapping the gold crest ring against the folder. "Garbage or not, it's an interesting tale. And you," he nodded toward Ethan, "you're either the bravest fool I've met or the smartest rat in the room." The tension was so thick Ethan could feel it in his teeth. Carter's smile had turned brittle. "We don't need drama, Leonard. Let me take Ethan out of here and—" "No," DeVries interrupted, voice like steel. "He stays until I decide who's lying to me." Ethan's mind raced. If DeVries believed Carter was double-dealing, Carter was finished. If he didn't, Ethan was. That's when the lights went out. A sharp pop echoed from somewhere behind Ethan, followed by shouts and the sound of something heavy hitting the floor. In the confusion, a hand grabbed his arm. "Move!" Harper's voice cut through the dark. Before he could react, she was shoving him toward a side door. Gunmetal glinted in her free hand. Ethan stumbled into a narrow hallway, Harper dragging him by the sleeve. Behind them, Carter shouted, "Stop them!" But it was swallowed by the chaos of footsteps and furniture scraping. They burst into a service stairwell. Harper didn't stop until they were 2 flights down. "I told you not to walk in there alone," she said, shoving the manila folder back into his hands. "Do you have any idea how close you were to disappearing?" "I didn't exactly plan for Carter to be standing in the corner," Ethan shot back. "That's because you still think this is about your company," Harper said, pulling open a steel exit door. "It's bigger." Carter's been feeding DeVries just enough to keep him close while lining up an entirely different buyer for your patents. You weren't just leverage, you were the product. They stepped into the cold night air, the distant hum of traffic mixing with the pounding in Ethan's ears. Harper's burner phone buzzed. She glanced at it and swore under her breath. "We've got less than 24 hours before Carter makes the handoff. If we don't stop him by then, he's gone, and so is everything you built." Ethan gripped the folder tighter, the paper inside crinkling. "Then we stop him tonight." Harper gave him a long look. "Then you'd better be ready to get your hands dirty." By midnight, Harper had the plan in place. They would intercept Carter at a private hangar in Teterboro Airport, where, according to her intel, he was scheduled to meet the overseas buyer for Ethan's patents. The drive there was a blur of sodium-lit highways and Harper's voice detailing contingencies. "We cut the power to the hangar before the meeting. You confront him in the dark, get him to admit enough on tape to ruin him. Once we have it, we leak it to everyone. Press, investors, DeVries himself. He'll be untouchable, but not in the way he thinks." Ethan gripped the steering wheel. "And if something goes wrong?" Harper smirked without humor. "Something always goes wrong." They parked behind a stack of freight crates near the edge of the runway. The hangar loomed ahead, its metal walls glowing under floodlights. Through a side window, Ethan saw Carter, impeccable suit, hands moving as he spoke to a man with a heavy accent and 2 bodyguards. Harper slipped inside through a service entrance, her tools moving fast and silent. The lights inside the hangar flickered, then died. The darkness swallowed everything but the dim glow of a few emergency lamps. Ethan stepped out from the shadows. "Evening, Carter." Carter's head snapped toward the voice. "You have terrible timing," he said, though his voice was tight. "You're going to regret this." "Not as much as you will," Ethan replied. Holding up a small recording device Harper had slipped into his pocket. Let's talk about the buyer. About DeVries. About the shell companies. Say it nice and clear. Carter laughed, low and cold. You think this matters? Even if you had me on tape, half the city owes me favors they'll never repay. I'll walk away from this, Ethan, and you'll be the one in the ground. That's enough, Harper's voice called from behind. She stepped forward, pistol raised, and tossed a second recorder onto the floor. We've got you twice now. One of the bodyguards moved, and everything unraveled. A gunshot cracked, echoing through the hangar. Harper staggered, the gun slipping from her grip. Ethan dove toward her, but Carter was already moving, grabbing a case from the table. Ethan lunged, tackling him. The case flew open, papers scattering like snow. Carter fought hard, but Ethan's anger had been building for days, and now it exploded. By the time the bodyguards pulled him off, Carter's lip was split, his suit torn. DeVries himself stepped into the hangar doorway, eyes cold as winter. I don't like thieves, DeVries said, looking at Carter. And I hate liars. Carter's face drained of color. Leonard. But DeVries just turned to his men. Take him. They dragged Carter out into the night. His voice echoed once, sharp, desperate, and then was gone. Ethan knelt beside Harper, who was pale but conscious. We got enough? He asked. She managed a weak smile. More than enough. By sunrise, the recordings were in the hands of every major outlet in the city. Carter Vale's empire burned in the news cycle, his allies scattering like roaches. But there was no satisfaction in it. Harper's injury meant weeks in recovery. Ethan's company was scarred, its reputation battered. And as he watched the city wake from his apartment window, he knew DeVries was still out there, patient, waiting. Mara's warning from that first night replayed in his head, watch your six. Ethan Caldwell was still a millionaire. But now he understood the truth. Wealth didn't make you untouchable. It just put you in a bigger game with sharper knives. And somewhere, Carter Vale was still breathing. That meant the game wasn't over. Not yet.